learning, and then make a transition to the PhD. And when you're a PhD student, you are just like any other PhD student. And then once you earn your degree, you know, you shoot for 4 years. Some people take longer. Some people happen to take 3 years, and they're lucky. So that's a variable timeline. You go back to your clinical years, and then different programs, and Michigan is one of them, allow you to modify that somewhat. Some programs let you do the PhD in between your first and second years of medical school. Michigan and some programs allow you to do one of your clinical rotations before your PhD. So I've actually done, you could say, the first 2 months of my third year of medical school, I did my surgical rotation and got to see what it was like to be a surgeon and scrub in the OR and cut out someone's liver tumor. And so that was interesting as if you wanted to be an oncologist. So I've done that, and then I suppose that speaks to the timeline, and there are various other things. I had to do my clinic. You need to decide what research lab you're going to join. So my summers between my first and second year of medical school, you're doing a research rotation in someone's lab to figure that out. And my ideal job is working for an academic institution like U of M, University of Wisconsin, any large school that has a health center with it. I think are the most employable positions for MD PhDs. My ideal scenario is what my mentor is doing. My mentor also happens to be an MD PhD. She sees breast cancer patients in the breast cancer clinic every Monday, all day Monday, and then she has various other administrative roles now, but her other time is spent outside of the clinic in the research lab and running the lab, and she's transitioned now. Some of her time is on administrative things, taking it away from the lab, but that's the golden rule is the 80-20, 1 day a week in the clinic and 4 days a week in the lab. And trying to do that, if you want to be a good doctor, some fields are more experientially based or practice based. It's clear to be a better surgeon, it is based solely on the number of operations you do. And so I think there are MD PhD surgeons who are fabulous surgeons, but generally you just need to find other time to do the research. You can't, it's the number of operations you do, and there are some other fields of medicine that are more broader, easier to stay on the cusp of and easier to stay good at. Not necessarily with less time, but they might complement the research more.
This is all of you. I don't really know that much about PhD, but how do you end up choosing what you're going to write about? Because it seems like there's so much you can explore in your research. Is it an idea that you go in with, and something that you saw that, I might be interested in this, or how does that work?
I think you have to be at the right place at the right time. Okay? And then, so there's like a luck aspect in it. But I think it's, when I choose my PhD, I visited many labs, and it's more like a feeling, you say, oh, I will feel good in this environment, more, better people to discuss with, or when I visited the lab, this guy was really friendly, explaining very well what he was doing. So it's a lot about, where do you feel good, because what's going to happen during your PhD or your postdoc is chances are you're going to spend most of your time in a lab. So if you're not feeling good in a lab, that's a very bad start. Very bad. So yeah, talk to the PIs, and obviously you need to be interested in the subject. But wherever you choose, you become an expert, and because you become an expert, you will love your subject as well. So I would say, I could have done 10 different PhDs, but for some reason I chose this one, and I thought it's a good choice. But who knows? Maybe I would have chosen something else. It would have been better for me, but I'm happy so far.
it's actually similar to that in some ways. But we get our students come in as PhD students, take classes for a couple of years, get research experiences before they get into a dissertation. When they're getting into the dissertation, it's typically a matter of finding the right professor who has the right grant that's going to support you, because you need support to get through the next 2-3 years. And so they tend to link up based on that, and they end up doing dissertations, typically based on what the professor has by way of grants. And that's true both in the sciences and the social sciences. I mean, back when I was doing it, it was very different. You were really choosing what you wanted to work on. You weren't thinking about grants and so on. But now I think that's the predominant model.
And if also in terms of what you physically choose to submit as a paper for publication, I think depends on what stage you are in your career. As an undergrad, you're maybe as a senior undergrad, you're sort of an idea generator, but for the most part, you're an extra pair of hands, and you're learning techniques, and hopefully find a graduate student mentor. It's very almost hierarchical. So a graduate student shows an undergrad how to physically do research and the techniques, and you need just more bodies to do the research. A graduate student has his or her thesis, and for me, I was driven by cancer, and so I looked at different cancer labs, and I had a good relationship with Dr. Maraver, who I'm doing my lab in, and like funding source. And now in terms of deciding what my thesis is going to be on, it's a mutual conversation between me and Dr. Maraver. We have a collaboration in Tunisia and Morocco and Egypt, where these clinical breast samples, tumor slides are coming over, and it's on a disease entity called granulomatous lobular mastitis. And so over the summer she said, Steve, we've got a bunch of these coming in. Why don't you look into this problem? And me going through the literature and reading the papers on that, and on inflammatory breast cancer, which is a type of breast cancer we work on, and seeing if there was any interaction between these, I came up with what I thought was an A, and presented it to Dr. Maraver and say, this is what I'm interested in working on. She goes, okay, great, why don't you plan up a set of preliminary experiments? So there was it's give and take between a graduate student, I think, and a mentor. As a postdoc, you have even more responsibility, like saying you need to come up with the ideas on your own, and you're almost, I see it as a graduate student is very involved in his or her project, and there are a couple different aims, but they're tied together on a theme. And as a postdoc, you want to learn and know how to touch a lot of different projects, I think, and well, postdoc's a little still nebulous to me, I'll be honest. But I think the ultimate idea generator is the PI and the principal investigator, and that's what they're getting grants funded for. I mean, grants are funded based on ideas, and you run a successful lab based on ideas. So what you choose to write up is the 1% of ideas that pan out. Okay. So maybe a long answer to the...
No, that was good. So kind of the ideas funnel down from what the PI decides that they would like to...
I think so. It would be as a graduate student, you pick a lab based on a topic area that you're interested in. For me, that was cancer. And now, in joining a lab, you're also somewhat signing yourself up to, the PI has an umbrella of expertise that is so big, I can't necessarily, and wouldn't do me or my mentor justice if I went off and tried to study neuroscience. Yeah, I would say the ideas funnel down, but are collaborative in the sense that stimulating conversations stimulate ideas, and anybody can have.
And the thing is, the hypothesis you'll be working on will probably be, never work out the way you wanted to. So, I mean, that would be your input. You'll be able to orient your research a little bit. Your boss thought it was this way, but you proved it was the other way, and so you will have a lot,